You make a great point because, what's the first thing most people do when they see a for sale sign on a house? Ooh, I wonder how much it's going for. And they'll go to robgolfi.com or MLS or whatever website they're hopping on to find out, okay, what's the price tag? And then next step is, well, how does that compare to my house? And if they're in the market to buy a home, they're like, oh, you know what? Maybe we make this move now.
Absolutely. Having a sign on the front lawn does open up a lot of doors. People drive by, they see it, they go, hey, we didn't know there was a house in this neighborhood for sale. So a sign is important. Listen to this episode. Hello, everyone. This is Rob Golfi with REMAX, the Golfi team. Welcome to the Golfi Real Estate Show, Hamilton Edition with host Rick Zamprin.
Another wonderful weekend is here. Yeah, that means another edition of the Golfi Real Estate Show with Rob Golfi, sales representative, REMAX Escarpment Realty, the Golfi team. You can call them today if you want to sell your house and get top dollar for it, or if you're in the market to buy a home, you'll be calling the number one REMAX team in Canada, the Golfi team, 905-575-7700. The website is robgolfi.com. That's robgolfi.com. And you can follow the Golfi team on TikTok and Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and X. And for an instant home estimate, here's another website for you, golfihomevalue.com. Again, that's golfihomevalue.com for your instant home estimate today. Lots of juicy stuff to talk about today, including what's happening in the GTA. Hint, not very well. We'll talk about the Bank of Canada and how it is a little less concerned about what it does in terms of trimming its interest rate and how that's going to impact home prices. We'll talk about that on the show. But let's begin today with what is happening in Rob Golfi's real estate life this week.
Yes, a lot of things. It is a quiet summer. There's no doubt about it. More than usual. And I still think, it's just, people are unsure of what's going on. But the one thing I do experience is that when I go to people's homes and I'm sitting there and they really want to sell, and the one thing is they don't want a sign on their front lawn. And I'm like, and the first thing I say, you don't want to sell your house? And they go, no, we want to sell it, but I don't want a sign. And it's frustrating because it's about 15% of the sales happen because of a sign. Sometimes it's a neighbor that will call their friends or family or somebody they know, say, hey, listen, there's a house on our street for sale. The neighborhood's good, and they'll inform somebody. So if a neighbor doesn't know the house is for sale, they're basically your leads that they're going to expose your house out to everybody. They will end up helping you sell the house. So, and I get it. People, don't want, to put the house up for sale because they want the neighbors. It doesn't matter. Who cares what the neighbors think? It's your house. You're going up for sale. You're going to move someplace else. They will find out if you put the sign up or not. They will find out. But I'll tell you, having a sign on the front lawn does open up a lot of doors. People drive by, they see it, they go, hey, we didn't know there was a house in this neighborhood for sale. So a sign is important when it comes to that. And sometimes we get people, they don't even want to advertise. And I'm like, well, I guess you don't want to sell. No, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. People want to sell houses. You know what? Maybe I got to do more of an investigation on those people that don't want anybody to know that the house is for sale. But the one thing is the sign is so important, putting on your front lawn. It does attract people. People drive down the street. They will see it, and they'll stop and look at it and probably call for information. And a lot of times people end up buying houses, maybe they weren't thinking about that neighborhood, and they happen to drive through and they say, hey, this looks like a good one. Like, we didn't even expect it, and they'll look at it. So
you make a great point because, what's the first thing most people do when they see a for sale sign on a house? Ooh, I wonder how much it's going for. And they'll go to robgolfi.com or MLS or whatever website they're hopping on to find out, okay, what's the price tag? And then next step is, well, how does that compare to my house? And if they're in the market to buy a home, they're like, oh, you know what? Maybe we make this move now.
Absolutely, it is, and I'll tell you. I remember years ago, there was a townhouse on a street on the Central Mountain, and there was a couple their parents lived on the street. Well, a house went up for sale, and they told their kids called me up and said, Rob, there's a house on the street. We got to get in there fast. And they actually paid a little more for the house because it was more valuable to them because their parents were there, and their parents were able to help their grandkids, their kids, to watch them. So the value of their house was greater for that couple than it was for anybody else. And the banks even, I even told them, I says, you're paying too much for this. And and they said, we don't care. I said, well, I just want to let you know, when you go to the bank, you let them know that you're paying too much, and you're aware of it. And the bank did tell them, and this was years ago. This is many years ago when banks were even more tighter on, when it came to appraisals and values, not like it is now. But the bank did tell them, and they said, yeah, our agent told us that we were paying too much. So I just didn't, you know how that conversation go sideways if you don't inform them. But they bought it. They bought it because their parents lived on the street. And if their parents didn't see it for sale, that house, who knows what would have happened to it. So, and it did have a sign on it, and that's how that sale happened. So a for sale sign is very important, no matter where your house is, and the sign makes a big difference.
You've sold hundreds of homes in a year. In fact, the Golfi team is the first ever team in Hamilton to sell 1,000 homes in a year. What percentage of those clients of yours say, I don't want a house? I mean, you're ultimately going to convince them that, listen, the sign is going to benefit you. But how many out of the gate say, I don't really want a sign? You know what?
We get usually about 5 to 10 a year. And we sell a lot of homes, which is not that much, but eventually they do put a sign. They realize that, and they end up putting a sign. And because sometimes they people are asking, well, hey, why isn't there a sign? Why isn't there a sign? It makes it easier for showing your house. When the agent's driving down the street and they can see the house, like they see, oh, there's the house with the for sale sign, and that they know that's the house for sale, so they can meet their clients there to show them the house. Sign's important, and I get it. Like, you feel kind of like, wow, like everybody's going to know my business. Right now, your business is to sell that house for top dollar, and if you want top dollar, you follow all the stuff that the realtor wants you to do, like all the marketing and everything, and that for sale sign is a big part of the marketing.
Is the reasoning people don't want the sign because they don't want their neighbors to know?
Yeah, that's a big reason. They just don't want them to know their business. I don't get it. So what? Who knows? Maybe they think, oh, if it doesn't sell, it's a failure to them. A mental. You know what I mean? So and usually a lot of times the people that don't want the for sale sign, it's an overpriced house. They want too much money for the house, and who knows what's on their mind, what they want to do.
Interesting, very interesting that some people don't want that advertising. That goes a long way.
Yeah.
Let's move on to, here's another interesting topic, and that's canceling your listing and relisting. How is this playing out?
You know what? Years ago, I used to do this, and I would list a house, and let's say, at a certain price. Now, it's not moving, nothing's happening. I would cancel it and relist it at a different price, a lower price, obviously, and hopefully you get action on it. But the way the systems are now, it's not worth it. I see these listings are getting canceled and relisted. It still shows days on market from the previous listing, so it doesn't change anything. The realtors see that. The public knows it. They know it. If you're a consumer and you're online looking at homes and you're seriously looking for a house and you're on realtor.ca, you know if that house has been for sale. And some people are canceling listings and relisting it at the same price. I don't. Sometimes I wonder, what are they thinking? It still shows the amount of days. Like if you had it for 90 days on the market and you're listed at $500,000, you cancel it, and then you relisted it again at $500,000, it still shows the 90 days. And now it's going to show 91 days it's been listed. So realtors out there, obviously they don't know the system that well, or they're not paying attention. So when you do a price reduction, just do the price reduction, and it'll still show up. The consumer knows what's going on. I've had one guy come to me and goes, Rob, what's this guy doing? He goes, he cancels the listing. It shows it's off the system, and it comes back on the system, like maybe 10,000 less off the whatever the price was. I knew and it's coming on the system as a brand new listing, and people know. But what, you know what I mean? Like, they see it, they know it. But what the agents think is when it's relisted, it goes through the people's algorithm. Like let's say myself. Let's say that you're looking for a house, Rick, and you're looking for a house between, you know, 450 and 550. This house gets listed at 500. I set up on my system that any houses in that price range, you will automatically get it in your email. And they think that's going to happen. It'll still happen if you change the price or change something on the listing. You will get that email automatically without having to cancel it. So a lot of people are, I don't know why they're doing that. Like, it's you know, people just get frustrated seeing the same listing at the same price when they're relisting it. It's not a good way to do it anymore. The old days, yes. Now it's different.
So is the best way now to not necessarily relist or adjust the listing to suggest, hey, we got a new price?
Yeah, like you know, adjust the listing, and there's people in Toronto, agents that adjusted the listing every single day. They just drop it $1, and it goes to people's algorithm every day. Every day, it's like people are getting sick and tired of it, and they get fined for that. The real estate board in Toronto, they're serious business. You don't want to mess with those guys; they'll fine you. There was a note on about somebody doing that, and they're basically trying to tell you, don't do that. And I was told that I don't know what he got fined, but he did get fined for doing that, and he did that for like almost like a month straight. But wow. they caught up to him, and now they got an eye on him, but you can't, you know, $1 a day. So you know, so he only reduced it $30 in 30 days. So
I'm sure he got fined or penalized more than $30. Oh,
for sure. You'll get penalized probably $500 or something like that, or even more, even in the thousands. So, and then once he's done that once, you'll get fined even bigger, or even get suspended as a realtor with the Toronto Real Estate Board. So you got to be very, very careful. It doesn't work like that as much. The consumer knows the house. Like, if you keep throwing it into the system, it's an overpriced house. It's an overpriced house. I've been watching one in Hamilton. There's one in Niagara Falls I've been watching, and the guy canceled it and relisted at the same price. I'm like, okay, what'd you do? Nothing. Okay, it's gonna go to everybody's email again, and they're gonna see it that it's the same price. There's no sense, you know. So, but you got to be careful with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I got another question about adjusting your listing. We'll get to that next. We'll also talk about the Bank of Canada and how it is less concerned that rate cuts are going to drive up home prices. We'll dive into that next. We're on Instagram, Facebook, X, Threads, TikTok as well. Give them a like and a follow. And if you have a topic idea or a question for the Golfi team, send them an email. We'll address it on a future program. The email address is questions@robgolfi.com. One more question regarding adjusting your listing. So instead of canceling and relisting or adjusting the price, for those who do kind of tweak it after a month or 3 months, wherever the case is, and the new slogan on the listing is, you know, new low price or reduced price, is that viewed nowadays as a negative, or are buyers looking at that and thinking, okay, now it's at, I think, a price that we can afford or is more accessible? How are people viewing that?
You know, people view it like, now the homeowner thinks, oh, if we reduce, they think there's something wrong with it. Sometimes people think there's something wrong with it. Realtors know it's getting priced better to where the value is. Like, when I see a price reduction done and I'm going, oh, okay, look, it looks like, you know, the house is getting priced closer to the value, so now it's worth taking a look at. Now, the consumer, when they look at it, they'll look at it at first and they see it's overpriced, and they may see it drop price, but they kind of program their mind not to care about that listing. And it just because of that, in their memory, they said it's overpriced, or something in their mind just is preventing them from looking at it, unless it's a significant price drop. Now, a $10,000 price drop is not worth it. Like I have clients like, yeah, let's drop it 10,000. I go, just leave it at the price it is. I go, otherwise you would have got an offer within 10,000 or 20,000. There's no sense doing those small drops, depending on the price point. I mean, some houses. Homeowners know that their house is overpriced, and you have to get a $50,000 price drop or $100,000, depending on the price point. And then when you do those price drops, you do get people looking at it, but the thing is, you really hurt yourself not pricing it right from the beginning. Let's say the house is worth $1 million. You list it at 1.1. Okay, you get people looking at it, no doubt. And what happens is you get 20 people looking at it. They all say no, it's overpriced. And then you drop it down 50,000. Nobody's looking at it anymore because all those buyers that were looking at it, you opened up the market, they see it, they look at it. Now they've brushed it off and said, not interested. Now they're waiting for the other new ones to go on the market. That's why your best buyers do come in the first 1 to 2 weeks. And you got to be very careful in what you price it. And you won't undersell a house. And if you think you're underpricing it, you won't. More people will be attracted to it, and more people will want it. And worst case scenario, you may end up getting 2 offers at the same time versus just the 1 offer. So you won't underprice a house, and no matter what the market is. And I know there's sometimes markets it is dormant, but we found that if it's priced right, it does sell fast, and it'll sell for full price or more.
That $1 million threshold is interesting because I think when most people are searching for homes, they're going to put in their little, search indicator or check off, homes listed at $999 and under, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can have a house that's worth $1,050,000. And sometimes it's tough to sell just over that $1 million mark, and because people don't want to spend over $1 million. So you got to find that buyer that's willing to go over the $1 million. I remember the threshold was $500,000, and the house was worth $5.25, but nobody wanted to pay $5.25. They said nope. 500,000. That's it. I'm not going any more than 500,000. And everybody had that same mental thought of not going over that threshold. And I remember that $500,000 mark. And it was like people try to stay under that number all the time. And even though the house was worth more than 500, and I think the $1 million mark is a very sensitive price point right now. Like going over the $1 million, it's got to be worth well over $1 million. If it isn't, and like let's say it's worth $1,050,000, $1,025,000, you're going to struggle getting that $1,050,000 or $1,025,000.
Yeah, because it wasn't that long ago we considered $1 million home a mansion, right? If you owned a 7-figure home, you had a mansion.
Oh, absolutely. $1 million, like I'll tell you, like even like 20 years ago, it was a lot of money for a house. Like not many, you know what I mean? But now everybody's a millionaire. Everybody's got $1 million house. Well, not everybody, but they're getting up there pretty quick, these houses. But yeah, like these houses are moving up fast, and people are becoming millionaires by default just because of their house. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, $1 million, it's still a lot of money, but the housing market's catching up to it pretty quick. With our average sale price that's happening out there.
If you're looking for your next $1 million home, whether you are buying or you're trying to unload your $1 million mansion or not, give the Golfi team a call, 905-575-7700. You'll be calling the #1 REMAX team in Canada. Yeah, the Golfi team. They're also online at robgolfi.com. That's Rob, GOLFI.com. It wasn't that long ago, a few months really, when the Bank of Canada was saying out loud, listen, if we accelerate interest rate cuts, that might have a big impact on home prices. Well, now the central bank is out with this messaging. It's not as concerned about its rate cuts driving up the price of homes. The next scheduled interest rate announcement is September the 4th. We've just had back-to-back cuts in June and July, so it'll be at least about a month or so before we see potentially another rate cut. But their messaging now is that while it did acknowledge that declining mortgage rates or higher than expected population growth could drive demand higher in the housing market. Delays in building homes could limit the growth of supply, and that certainly has an impact on pricing. What do you make of the latest messaging from the central bank?
They're realizing it. The two interest rate drops that they did nothing to the market, and they're going, okay, so what do we do now? So now September, they're for sure going to do another drop because it's done nothing in the market, and they need builders to build, and they need that to build up more homes. This country's got a shortage of homes, so either they go a half a point in September, which could stir the market. And if they're going to do a half a point, the fall market's the best time to do it. You don't want to really do it in the spring market because that will stir up even more and crazy because the spring market's automatically more busier, even with the interest rates going down regardless. But I think if they do that in the fall, it'll stir up the market. It'll continue, and people are still cautious. People are still watching. And but I think they should do another half. They should do a half point. But yeah, the 2 quarters that they did nothing in the market. Did nothing, and they need to get going on this. And if they take it too slow going down, we're going to be choked with too many people in this country with no homes.
So we've gone over the last couple of months from 5% to 4.5% with the back-to-back cuts. If they say on September 4th, we're cutting another half a percentage point. Now, in a matter of basically 3 months, we've gone from 5 to 4%. Do you think this fall's housing market activity will be one of the biggest in a long time?
It'll change, that's for sure. If we're down one full point, and from, I think it definitely will. It's going to stir up the market. It will be busy. And they need to do it. And things are changing in this marketplace, like with the stock market, coming down right now, and businesses are struggling out there. So it's hard to tell, but they need to stir up and get the economy going a little bit better than it is right now. It's the economy is pretty tough. A lot of the contractors out there, they're struggling. They're suffering out there. The drywallers, the framers, the electricians, and plumbers, they're begging for business. They're doing all side jobs here and there just to stay alive. Because the builders aren't building. And, if nobody's building, nobody's working.
Yeah. I know we have a lot more listings now than we have over the last number of years, especially at this point of the year. Do you think a half-point drop in September would flood the market with buyers?
I don't think it'll flood it, but I think it's going to be a lot busier, and it will definitely help the market. But yeah, I think they may do that and see what happens, and maybe hold tight at that half point just to keep things rolling, and see if people start looking in to home builders and see if they'll start opening up model homes and saying, hey, we're building a subdivision here, and see if they sell a lot of new homes. They need to build a lot of new homes in this country. If they don't do it, it's just it's going to get tougher and tougher. But I do think a half point will bring the market up, no doubt. That's enough to get things going, and they'll probably do, and they'll just hover around that, and maybe do another quarter or half point after that. Maybe we'll see, but I think the half point they should do in September.
We'll see on September the 4th. I know that home sellers in the GTA will certainly hope for a busier market because there is a real estate listing site that has taken a pulse of the market in the GTA and found out that bidding for homes cooled in the 4th consecutive month in July. So this report looked at 300 neighborhoods in the Toronto area where there were at least 5 home sales last month. And it found that only 14% of those areas saw overbidding on homes. About half of the 27% rate of overbidding witnessed in June, and 82% were under bids. 80% of the homes in Toronto selling are below asking. Is that shocking, or are you at all surprised about that?
I'm not surprised for Toronto. Like I'll tell you, I've seen agents take properties like they're buying here from Toronto. People are buying here in the Hamilton Niagara area, and they put their house up for sale in Toronto, and it's not selling. The market in Toronto is tough. Like it's not it's too expensive, and it's got to readjust itself. Now I did some numbers with Hamilton, and it showed in the month of July there was 507 homes. Out of that 507, 384 sold for full price or more. That's not bad. You know what I mean? Like, and in Niagara, all in Niagara, including Grimsby, 549 homes sold. 411 of them were full price or more. So, like, yeah, that's not bad. So Burlington, 174 homes sold in July. 141 of them were full price or more. And then Brantford, 109 homes sold in July. 89 of them were full price or more. So we're probably doing way better than they are because it's more affordable. But yeah, Toronto, like one couple, they had a house. And they took a sale of property of a house in Toronto, and it was a high-end house, and they didn't sell. And those people in Toronto thought, oh, we're going to get $4 million for our house. Well, guess what? Nobody was even looking at it. So guess the person locally here in Hamilton ends up getting tied up for about a month or so, and the deal doesn't go through. And now they have to wait for another buyer to come in the market that wants that. So you got to be careful if you take a sale of property of a Toronto home, and you got to make sure you know the house and if they're valuating and putting up for sale at the right price. Otherwise, you are just going to lock yourself in with these people, and you are going to get nothing out of it. So be very careful what kind of offer you get and who you get it from.
In our final 2 minutes of this segment, so in the GTA, 14% of the homes were overbid, 4% sold for asking, 82% there were underbids. Would you change your marketing strategy or price point given those stats?
You know what? Yeah, like it's just I would bring those stats and say, listen, here's what's going on, and a lot of times maybe they're overpricing a little bit, and they're pricing it right, but overpricing just like 1 or 2%. They got to be just under that 1 or 2%, and to get that price that they want for their house. And like, again, and these houses, they probably were overlisted. They dropped the price, and then bang. And those stats are based on whatever the house is listed at, the price at, not from where they started at. It's based on what that house was listed currently. And they could have done 5 price drops before that. But yeah, marketing wise, it is tough to kind of deal with that. But a lot of negotiations on there. Right now, buyers, this is your time. This is your time to go in and negotiate a good deal. The inventory is there. There's lots to choose from. And also, you can negotiate a decent price on a house, and you can get yourself a decent deal, because once the interest rates drop, if they drop a half a point, everybody's going to start rushing to the market. Maybe not aggressively, but the prices of homes are going to start stabilizing and getting a little better. And now you're going to end up paying more money. So now, if you see something you like, go for it and lock it and put a 3-month closing on it. So then maybe the interest rates will even drop again, and you'll benefit from that.
So with every listing comes a description of what you are buying into. But Rob, you have a message about be careful about how you advertise your property. What are some of the do's and don'ts?
Yeah, you got to be very careful. For instance, like if you have a realtor, make sure they understand and they know what they're writing down. But anyway, they're liable for it. So there was a realtor one time. He walked through this house, and he went through pretty quick. And the floors are beautiful. And so he puts down beautiful, gleaming hardwood floors in his listing. And no problem. So the people end up walking through on a final inspection and say, hey, these aren't hardwood floors. This is laminate flooring. It was a good laminate flooring. And so the agent, looks at it and goes, oh boy, now it's up to the agent to get the right information. It's not the homeowner. And it cost that agent money. He had to pay for hardwood floors. And wow. You got to be very careful. For instance, you don't want to say new roof. You want to say new shingles or shingles. New shingles in 22, new shingles then. You don't want to say new roof because maybe the roof is rotted and they say, hey, you said on this listing that it's a new roof. I want a new roof. For instance, windows, vinyl windows. Sometimes you don't want to say all new vinyl windows. You'll say mostly all windows are vinyl and mostly new. You know what I mean? So you're saying that, hey, you got vinyl windows throughout the house, but majority of them are new. And you got to be careful with wiring. You don't know what's behind the walls. To be very, very careful. And I would just say, if you got a 100 amp service on breakers or 200 amp service on breakers, and just leave it like that. Let them get their home inspector to look at it. But there's so many different things. You have to be very, very careful in what you write in the listing, because it will haunt you when the new owners move in and they say, wait a minute, this listing said this, and this is not what we got. The realtor, it's their job to get the right information and put it and make sure it's right on that information. Otherwise, they're on the hook for it.
Once you buy a home, how long does that new homeowner have to raise that red flag?
You know what? It depends. Like you might have, let's say, a high and dry basement, right? And let's say it's been dry for 3 months, 4 months, no rain, nothing. And all of a sudden you get this big, heavy rainfall and you got tons of water coming in your basement. Hey, listen, we thought we had a high and dry basement and we got water. Like that's wrong. I mean, these people, they lived in this house for 10 years. I'm sure they've had a lot of water, like a lot of rain at some point, and they did not disclose that. They did not disclose that there was rain. But sometimes, maybe that's the first time that they did get rain. That water came in their basement. There's always a first time, right? It always starts happening at one time, and you could be the unlucky one that it starts when you own it. So you got to be able to prove that the seller's got to be able to prove that it's never happened before, and I'll tell you, some of these situations happen the day after closing, or where you get this heavy torrential rain and all of a sudden the house leaks, like rainwater's going in like crazy, and it's never done that before, and all of a sudden the new homeowners are like on the line for it. And there was a case, I don't know the details too much, but they did get a flood in their basement the day after closing, the day after. And because we did have some torrential rain in the last 2-3 weeks, and they moved in, and the day after, and they had to clean up the basement and everything else like that. And it's just unlucky. And that house never had that problem ever before. And we know people out there, that had rain, that heavy torrential rain, never had water in their basement. Now they got it for some reason, and even I saw a dealership, the water was just coming up the sewer line though, and flooded the dealership. So there's always a first time, and hopefully you're not the one that's on the hook for the first time.
If you disclose it, however, had minor flooding. Or a minor leak in the basement years ago, we took remediation efforts. We got it repaired, and the homeowner obviously the buyer signs off on this because they clearly have seen this disclosure. Is the home seller scot-free, or are they okay?
Well, if you disclose it, it's good because you're off the hook because you disclosed that you did have a leak, you repaired it. If there's another leak, I mean, it just could happen. But if you disclose everything. And you say, listen, we had this problem, we fixed it, we hadn't had a problem since. People appreciate that. And because you get to know the house. You're passing the history of this house to the next homeowner. He'll know what to deal with. He knows where that leak is in that corner that did happen once before. He'll know what to deal with. Like, for instance, it's always good to be totally honest. You will have no problems.
So you've sold your house. It's closing day. Everything is going according to plan. But, some things can go wrong? Rob, I'm sure you've seen and heard so many different things going wrong on closing day. What are some of the many things that can go wrong?
Oh, you know what? Sometimes banks, they keep asking for information, and sometimes the banks delay funding because maybe the buyer just didn't give one piece of information for the closing. So financing could be a problem. Title, if the lawyer doesn't do his homework and look up title 2 weeks before closing date, sometimes they get a little lazy, and they look it up the day before, and all of a sudden they got some issues to deal with, and they could delay closing. There's so many different things, closing date that stops it. A lot of it, land registries, things are going. What if there's a power outage? That we just had one, I think just not too long ago, and it was a Friday. There was a huge power outage downtown Hamilton, and lawyers couldn't close deals, so people would have to wait the next day. Sometimes there's if the funds have already transferred, if the banks already gave the funds to the lawyer, and that lawyer's got to give the funds to the other lawyer. Then what they do is they'll close the deal, and the lawyers sign off and say, okay, everything's good. We close the deal and we'll register it the next day. But that's why it's always good not to close on a Friday. Close either Wednesday or Thursday, because if there is a hiccup, it'll close the next day. But if you close on a Friday, and then you have to wait till the Monday, you got to wait all weekend. It could be a problem. So never close your house on a Friday. It's the worst thing that can happen. There's always, unexpected costs that happen on closing dates. Sometimes they didn't have enough down payment. They thought they had. You know how closing days are. You go in, the lawyer, you're in your mind, you got, okay, I gave a deposit. I'm expecting this much for legal fees and land transfer tax and all the fees and the balance of the down payment. So you work out those numbers in your head. And guess what? It's all, the lawyer is always he ends up telling you, we need a bigger check than what you anticipated, and it becomes an issue. Sometimes they can't get it if they don't have parents, family, or any friends that can help them. They are in a tight situation. They have to go to their bank and say, "Listen, we're in a bad situation here. I thought my closing, with the check I was supposed to bring was going to be $30,000. Now they want $37,000. I don't have that extra $7,000, and it's tough. I've been there. When I was young in my 20s buying houses. I'll tell you, that lawyer, no matter how hard you try to work the numbers out, it's always higher. The lawyer, it's always a higher number. You can get somebody that you buy a farm or a house, and let's say the homeowner paid for the taxes for the whole year up front. Well, you have to reimburse them for those taxes. So that could change your money that you have to give to the lawyer on the closing date. So always be prepared for that. That's sometimes some delays things because people have to get money. People, not moved out. Sometimes the seller is not 100% moved out. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. What's going on? We've had delayed closings where tenants don't move out. And sometimes those houses, there's been so many issues. We've had a couple of this year that tenants didn't move out. And, what do you do? Nothing. It's just, you just got to go on, and hopefully you got to keep an eye on the tenant. Well, look at the story that happened to one lady. She bought the house and she inherited the tenant. She should have walked. Still hasn't moved in. Yeah, she should have walked through that house the night before or the morning of, and otherwise she would not have owned that house today. She probably would ended up buying something else and go on. But she got stuck with the tenant. Now she's a landlord.
Do most real estate transactions on closing day, do the overwhelming majority work out with no issues, or is there about half that have something that's up?
No, majority work out with no issues. And sometimes the seller didn't even know they were renting a furnace, and the buyer said, there was nothing on the contract that said there was a rental furnace, and so they got to pay out that thing. So sometimes that gets delayed. Nobody wants to pay for it. The buyer says, I'm not paying for that. The seller says, well, I didn't expect it to be that much, and so that can end up delaying a day or two. And sometimes you have to negotiate with the furnace companies that you're renting from. Say, hey, listen, take your furnace out of here now. I'll get another furnace, And so you got to negotiate with those guys.
Interesting stuff. You can listen to our show online through Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and many more. Just search for the Golfi Real Estate Show in your favorite podcast platform. Hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. Thank you, Rob, and thank you for listening to the Golfi Real Estate Show. We're back next Saturday at 9 on 900 CHML.
Yeah, picking the wrong realtor, that'd be a big mistake. That cost me money.
Hi, Rob here, and hey, we get it. We get that the right realtor makes all the difference. My advice, talk to 3 realtors, including one from the Golfi team. Compare and you'll see no one gets results like Golfi because of the millions we invest in marketing, getting you the most money in the least amount of time.
The Golfi team, Golfi gets it sold.
Pick the right realtor. Just Google Golfi.